Okay, we're live today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another on the From Lost to Thriving series on the podcast Heal, Develop, and Expand with me, Elisa. Today we got a beautiful guest, Candice, and we're just going to talk about lots of topics. But the main thing here is, as any other, is to share your story, how you thrive from abuse, what you learned, and how you're currently dealing with this. What lessons did you learn from this experience?
Yes.
So tell us, Candice, what's your story? Who's the narcissist? How it happened?
Okay. Thank you, Elise, for having me on this podcast. And for all the people listening, tuning in, you're amazing. Keep going. We've got this. How did I find out my story? Well, a lot of my story is really learning how to let go of the things that were negative in my life and learning that sometimes the narcissist in the mirror wasn't just the people that were harming me, but it was my own thought process. And so for me, the narcissist that's been in my life pre-birth, we've talked about this before. Trauma is in our genetics. I was born with trauma in my DNA. I was born with a fear lens in my eyes. I was born feeling not safe, not wanted, not loved. And that is because my mother was a young, unwed Catholic mother who was babysitting and ended up pregnant with me. And her religious beliefs didn't allow for abortion. Her beliefs were that if she did that, she would go to hell. So she decided to have me anyway. And ironically, she ended up creating a life of hell regardless, whether she had the abortion or not. And that's what actually kind of really prompted me to go on this really incredible journey to understand why humans do what they do, why people that are hurting inside pass that on, and how does it get passed on genetically if this is ancestrally? Because I started seeing a trend with the partners that I picked when I grew up, that they had also suffered from childhood abuse, and their parents suffered from abuse, and their parents. I'm like, holy crap, we're not even standing a chance. This stuff is just getting passed down. And so I write about in Namaste, Away and Thrive, my first book, about body wisdom intuition. And when we know about body wisdom intuition, there's a sense within us. Our intuition is always registering what's going on in our environment, whether it's safe or not. And ironically, what I found out on the other end of survival mode was that the body will start to tell you whether the people you're around are healthy for you or not. And that registers as mood, appetite, sleep, sex drive, even the ability to think clearly. So if you're in a relationship and you're completely in confusion, that's usually a good sign that you're not in a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, now where I'm going with this, I've had that pattern since I was a little girl. And come to find out, my mom had that pattern with her mom and her mom and her mom. Same with my fathers, their relationships. So come to find out, my mom, while she was pregnant with me, was terrified of having me and stressed out the whole time. So my baby self is being exposed to all of these, what do you call, like, stress hormones. And
Mm-hmm.
in those stress hormones, I live by an airport. And in those stress hormones, it's registering in my body that it's not safe to be born. It's not going to be safe to be me. And I don't have a right to exist. And so as I'm now born to a mother who is young, emotionally immature, lacks the ability to care for herself, let alone another human being, and didn't know how to regulate her own moods and nervous system. And now she's got a baby. Like, if that's not a recipe for disaster, I don't know what is. But
Yeah.
the collateral damage is beautiful, because out of that collateral damage was me. And out of my collateral damage has become this big, huge movement of be love, of being unconditional to yourself first, and then expanding that out. Because what I saw is that people that do not love and respect themselves do not love and respect others. Because here's a transformational paradigm that I learned in transformational coaching school. How we do one thing is how we do everything. And so with that awareness, I was able to go back and look at all of my experiences and be like, oh my God, these people didn't know what they were doing. So how can I be mad at them for the abuse that they've, logged on to me, if that was what was done to them and that's all they've been shown? And so as I started doing personal development, and as you well know, doing personal development, there's lots of rabbit holes to go down. There's lots of things to learn. And in learning that is where I learned that in order for us to shift this story in my generation, it needs to be learning how to love ourselves in every right now, and also doing the same with others and not taking things personal. If I were to sit and take things personal, I probably would never leave my house. I wouldn't want to achieve or want to create. And so when we're taking things personal, that's also a sign that we are living in our ego, which is living in fear. And that is creating hell, which is what my mom did. She was in her ego, worrying about what everybody was going to think. She was in her ego, worrying about the ways she would be perceived, not thinking that maybe she could be perceived as courageous, because now she's facing something unknown and she's going to embrace it rather than resist it. And so in her resistance, it created a very deep narcissistic wound within me that created also codependency. And that played out in relationship after relationship after relationship, even with my children. And so for me, the crescendo for me was in 2018, my 10-year marriage we weren't married 10 years. We were together 10 years. It fell apart. And it was because we were both not loving ourselves. And the environment was so chaotic because he's over here with his negative stinking thinking, and I'm over here with my negative stinking thinking, and I'm thinking he doesn't love me, and he's thinking he's not lovable. So we're both creating a situation to prove those beliefs to be true. And in the fallout of that, an argument that turned physical, we started pushing one another back and forth. And the next thing I know, I'm off of the couch and I've fallen on my neck, one vertebrae from having it break my neck and kill me. And I'm laying there in a shock. And I was like, oh my God, I think you broke my neck. And he's like, if I would have broke your neck, you wouldn't be talking. And I don't know why it took me to that point, after all the toxic things and the betrayal and the rejection and everything that I went through with him, why it took that moment for me to be like, this dude does not love me. This is not what love is. And in that moment, even then, I still couldn't take the steps that I needed because I was in still a codependent state. So I messaged a friend, and that friend is the one that called the police for me because I was so terrified. I was in such a state of fear that if I took action, that it was going to be worse. And so in that moment, I also realized, I wonder if that's why my mom did what she did, that her fear paralyzed her time and time again. And so she couldn't show up in the way that she needed to time and time again. So he's gone. I'm now doing the work. And I realize he wasn't the only narcissist in their relationship. I was also being narcissistic because one thing trauma does, and this is something, I don't know if you've experienced it, it makes us have this wound and this need to be seen and heard, and it's not about us, we're not trying to make it all about us, but it's like, I matter, like someone pay attention to me, I matter, I matter, I matter. So you're doing all these things to get other people outside of you to validate you, which is also ego and also living in fear. And what I was doing was keeping alive that cycle of survival mode. And looking outside of myself for validation, looking outside of myself for worthiness and inclusion. And if I didn't have that, then I must be a bad person. I must not be lovable. And I must not be, I don't know why my nose is itching. I must not be wanted and lovable. And that was the birthright imprint of my mom when she was pregnant with me, not wanting to have me. So how crazy is it that those beliefs that we're often carrying around aren't even ours? That wasn't my belief. That was her belief. And I owned that
Exactly.
shit. And I went running with it to the races. And, you know, I never won the race of loving myself until I finally said, nah, I'm just going to stay away from that negative influence of this person, that belief, that behavior or habit. And I'm going to learn to love myself and nourish my body and respect my body, because in all of the trauma, I was also traumatizing myself. I was self-harming through food, through diet, through, I would cut when my emotions would be too big so I could feel that pain instead of the emotional pain, because no one ever taught me how to deal with emotional pain. But you could beat the shit out of me and I'd laugh at you. You literally be beating me and I'd be laughing at you, being like, haha, you can't hurt me. Haha, sticks and stones may break my bones, you know. But what would really hurt me was rejecting me and not giving me love, not listening to me, you know, shutting me out when I'm talking to you. Like my mom
Yeah.
would not look at me in the face when I'd be speaking, and that would hurt me more than anything. So learning how to love myself really was how I took my power back, because learning to unconditionally love myself and all the broken parts of me, that was how I started getting the success of moving from victim mode to victor mode, and out of survive mode into thrive mode. Because when I made that decision, no, I'm going to stay away from things that are not good for me, because sometimes just because someone loves you doesn't mean they're good for you. And just because someone says they love you doesn't mean they actually love you. If their actions don't match their words, hard stop, nope, bye. You know, and I even had to do that with myself a few times, because I would be so toxic with the shit just running through my head. And again, it was this tape in my head that had been inserted from a very young age. And so I had to learn how to heal that. How do you find success from these limiting beliefs that just are intrusive and incessant, and they just are just relentless, right? That is, again, self-love and learning how to master your mind and heal I don't say that we're broken. I say we've got a little bent, you know, our wires got a little bent. And so
Yeah.
pathways aren't flowing. And so you have to go in and fix that. And so I created all these tools, and a lot of those are in the first book, that will help a survivor come into alignment with their self. It will help them start to heal those patterns of limiting beliefs, those patterns of self-abandonment. Because here's the thing that I had to learn about thriving. I had to stop abandoning myself in order for my inner child to feel safe, so that I could do the work, which means you make sure that you're eating right. You make sure that you're sleeping properly. And that means setting up a bedtime routine. You may not sleep well through the night because trauma disrupts all the things in the brain, including hormones. So it takes quite a while for all that to even out. But showing up and loving you and nurturing you, you know, the little girl that's inside you that never got nurtured, she's needing you. She needs you to show up for you more than she needs you to chase the guy that's being a shithead to you. She needs you to show up for you more than the kids that have gone no contact against you. That unconditional love that you're wanting to give to everybody else and let everybody else walk all over you and drop that bar low, but you don't do it for yourself. That's where the biggest needle mover happens, is when you start showing up for you. And it takes setting an intention. And that was what book number 2 was, is set that intention to appreciate and show up in a way that honors you and shows yourself that you love you. And receiving solutions to help you. Because I don't know about you, when I was first in my healing, people would try to tell me things and I would just be like, no, I know how to do this. But it would always be 9 times out of 10, that very thing they said was the thing I needed to listen to.
Yeah, it happened to me too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that stubborn ego. And that's, again, like, I have so much wisdom around all this, and like, I could just talk for hours and hours. And like, as you can tell, I'm really passionate about this stuff because I lived in hell, my own hell of my own making, because I was living in a state of fear, and I was living in a state of grief and antagonistic of like, well, how can they get away with that? And how dare they? And why is it they can do that? But if I did that, oh my God, the world would be ending if I pulled those stunts, And that in its own right is, on the levels of consciousness, creating a vibration of hell, a location of hell on earth. And so for me, it's really been about staying in alignment with what's right in front of me right now, because I had learned so easily how to disassociate from my body and the things going on around me in order to stay safe in that moment. And so a lot of what I've created is teaching us how to stay present with ourselves, how to sit in the shit and be like, okay, well, if that's shit, let's go put that in the compost garden. That's going to grow me some pretty flowers, because that's what it did. All that compost for me has grown this pretty flower book and this is no point, and there's no reason to live. I beg you to reframe that as, why am I in a cocoon, and why is everything liquefying to shit around me right now? Oh, is it maybe for me? Is this all happening for me? Yeah. Oh, okay. It's happening for me. Okay. So the isolation I'm in is my cocoon, so I can heal, so I can fix my brain that has been manipulated by narcissistic energy, so that I can transform it into pure love, like pure love.
Yeah.
And that is the big one, because you can be love and all that trauma, but you're sitting in fear and ego still. So it's when you alchemize the ego, and like we were taught in our conscious business accelerator, your ego is your amigo. So make your ego your amigo. What is your ego saying? Usually if it's saying something about being left out, then you need to look at, what is it that your needs are, that you need. You may need to show up and do some self-validating and some self-appreciating and some self-adoring and some self-nurturing. And that's what I started finding was the case for me time and time again. It's not about what other people are doing or not doing. What am I doing or not doing? Am I loving myself right now? Am I eating like I love myself, or am I just binging out on sugar and, snack foods to make myself feel good, to create that sense of, I feel good, but you really don't.
Yeah, and to numb our feelings too with food.
Yeah. And then you're doing I was doing, and this is pretty common, so don't beat yourselves up for it. We all kind of go through this at one point, and we're doing the best we can, and we're finding ways to fill that need for sweetness in any way possible. So I see this with a lot of female clients. It's the ice cream and wine at bedtime. I know, I was guilty of it. I was doing it. Like Ben and Jerry became my best friend, and wine was what I washed it down with, So, but I would wake up the next morning feeling sicker than what I did the night before. And within, a few bites of the sugar and the wine, I would start feeling anxious because of all that sugar and what it does to the brain, because it's a neurotoxin. And I'd be like, gee. So, and then I'd wake up depressed and feeling shameful. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Oh, that's right. Because I don't feel worthy of feeling good. I don't feel worthy of taking care of myself, because no one ever showed me how to do it. No one ever showed me how to meet my needs. They told me I didn't matter. So, oh, wow. So that became a classroom of like, following the belief to realize what my result is, and then take that result and backtrack it to the belief to be like, yep,
Yeah.
that confirms what I'm thinking. And so as I started to realize that the sugar that I was using to fill those holes, I could fill that sweetness in other ways. But it really took me, we talk about getting lost. Well, I lost myself completely because I never knew who I was. I was always conditioned to be the caregiver, to be the sex slave, to be the housewife, to be to be the maid, to do the laundry, just to be the all around, you're doing the shit work and that's it. And I didn't know what I liked because I was always assimilating to everything around me to be the peacemaker, to be the people pleaser. And in doing so, I would also then martyr myself when I wouldn't have my needs met. And then that's where the narcissism came in. And I'd be like, well, they don't do this and they don't do that. And if only, and I actually wrote a poem called if only the things that would stop taking my joy would happen, then I could be happy. But that's not how happiness works. We don't find happiness by chasing it. Happiness is something we choose to feel, and we can feel that when we focus on all the things that are beautiful in our life. And even in the chaos, what is that chaos's intention? What's the positive intention? And that goes back to the final thing that I want to share here of why I was able to forgive my parents, because every act is an act of love or a cry for love. And so I can see that my mom not having an abortion was an act of love. I can see that my mom, while she wasn't the mom that I wanted, she wasn't as bad as she could have been, at least she still tried, even though she didn't know how, and while she did abandon me, she did come back and get me, there's so many ways that I could look at this worse that would make it really hard for me to forgive them. But forgiveness isn't something that I want to just freely give, but also withhold, because if I keep holding judgment and rejection and antagonistic energy to them for what they did, then I am in essence living in the past over something that's not even, I can't change that right now. So I can't change their failures. I can't change my failures. But what I can do is validate the experience for whatever the classroom was in that moment for the consciousness, which is always learning how to look at life through love, not fear, and learn how to empower yourself with that awareness. And in that awareness, now you've become a conscious creator. Now you're like, okay, I'm not creating life from fear anymore. Now I'm creating it through the mastery of my belief of I am loved, I am lovable, and I have value, and I have a right to exist. And it is okay to want, it is okay to learn, it is okay to make mistakes. That's how you start to release that control from fear and start to see life through love. So now you're no longer lost in the thicket of who you were, because now you've kind of forgiven what that is. So now you got to go discover who you are. And so that looks different for everybody. There's different there's different techniques. I was starting to say techno. I'm like, no, it's not technology, it's techniques. Yeah. There's different techniques that you can apply, but really it's just about sitting with yourself and learning how to detox all the negative influences and accept the positive for what it is, and really learn how to look through your heart. And one of the things that we look at when we're looking for solutions for success versus sympathy for our survival victim mode. And here's how to tell which one you are. If you are in a success mode, when you see free help or you're listening to a free podcast and you get information on what that pain is you've been and how to face it, well, you're going to show up and do the inner and outer work. No excuses, no rationalizations. You're just going to find a way to make it happen because you're passionate about the other side of that wall, the transformation that's going to happen. But if you're in sympathy mode and you're stuck in victim mode, which again, everything has its purpose. And this isn't to point fingers at anyone or to make you feel bad or shameful, because that is the last thing that I'm here to do. I'm here to remove that shame. It's knowing that you're getting free help, but you're still rejecting it. You're being given all these beautiful insights right here, but you're like, no, if they would just, the second you say if they, or if this, or should, you're literally casting your energy out, and you're like, you're abandoning your own ability to transform this whole shit story into a success story. So you're going to meet advice with, excuses or the silent treatment, or you're going to ghost someone when they offer you treatment. Like, I'm sure you've gotten that, where you've shared wisdom in groups or in private chats, and they either attack you or they ghost you. And it's like, I'm just trying to help. Like, I'm you. I'm not better than you. Like, I'm still dealing with shit. I was triggered right before this meeting, and I had to do the work to get grounded in my body. Life is going to keep throwing shit at you, like, but it's not your monkeys and it's not your circus. So you transmute it, right? But if you're in sympathy or in victim mode or survival mode, you're going to have no clue of what all that is. You're going to be, I'm a victim. It's about me. That right there is the narcissism that I was talking about. Yeah, it is kind of about me, but it's not about just me. We are all part of source here in human form, having human experiences, so consciousness could get to know itself and expand. If you're in survival mode or sympathy mode, that's not expansion.
Yeah.
That is timid. That is fear. That is protection. That is guarding. It's time to put the sword down. You got to put it down. That sword is not serving you anymore when you're ready to heal. So if you're still complaining about the same problem to 3 or more people or 3 or more posts on social media, that's usually a sign that you're seeking sympathy. And so you're focused on the pain and the past, not what's now and what's possible. So if you fell in the sympathy mode, then those are signs that you need a coach. You need a coach that's been there. You need a coach like Elisa or myself that has walked this walk, and we've got tools in our toolbox, and we've got a big flashlight, and we're like, hey, whoa, there's a pothole over there. Watch out. You better love yourself harder, or he's going to get you, and that's the thing. Narcissistic partners are looking for codependent partners because they need that energy in order to feel powerful. And we need that narcissistic person for us to feel wanted and needed, because we didn't feel that in our childhood. And that can even be if mom or dad is just busy and working all the time, or they're just emotionally distracted with other things. It doesn't mean they're physically abusive. Narcissism, it's a slippery slope, but it really comes down to, we all are narcissists at one point or another. And any given moment, we can be a narcissist or codependent, or we can be independent. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing, but it is an experience that we all go through. And until we realize that, shit, I'm the narcissist in the mirror, you're going to keep creating the problems, because those problems are your classroom of other people showing you what you're believing about yourself. Oh, I must be a shitty person if this person's treating me like shit. Well, why do you believe that about yourself? Who told you that?
Yeah, so true.
So, success or sympathy, being lost or being found, it's, if you're lost, you're in survival and sympathy mode. And when you're seeking to be found, you're seeing yourself. That's the only way to get unlost from this shit, is you've got to go inward. And one of the dreams I had was, I'd asked Source, how in the hell am I supposed to get through this? If this keeps happening, and why does it keep happening? I've done the work. Why does this keep happening? And in the dream, I saw a fortress, and they said the word citadel. And I was like, citadel? And I'm nerdy, so I always wake up from my dreams going, what does this mean? So I looked up citadel. I just typed in the word citadel, and citadel is a fortress that is impenetrable from outside forces. It can only be torn down from within. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh my God, citadel. Da 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 da. Our heart and our mind can only be torn apart by us first. But here's the thing. Who writes the stories that we start telling? They start in utero. Those birthrights, and I talk about those in Namaste, Way and Thrive, those are imprinted in our neural pathways in our brain while our brain is forming, while we're in utero. At the time of conception, if parents are in a state of love and they're planning this baby and they're harmonious, the baby knows it's safe. It's okay to be me, all is well. But if mom and dad are just drunk and haphazard and, or it's a forced pregnancy, because you've been sexually assaulted, now you've created a situation where in utero, this baby is forming and does not feel that it is safe to be itself. And all of our birthrights are intact by the time we're age 5. That last one is the age of magical thinking. So if you see 4-year-olds like my granddaughter, she's all about dress up and play and creation mode. But let me tell you, she doesn't get her way. Her ego, ooh, she won't hesitate to tell you. But that's because she's had an upbringing where she feels safe to speak her needs. So it's not that she's a narcissist, it's she's able to be very aware of what her needs are, and she isn't ashamed to tell you what she wants. And so when she's in that mode, she's not receiving new information. You can't tell her something good if she wanted to hear it, because she's not hearing it. So we have to do, take a breath, baby girl. You got to breathe. So you got to calm the brain down, because it can't assimilate new information if you're in a survival state. So if you're in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship, you're not going to get better. You're not going to get well where you're being made sick, because what I talked about, that body, wisdom, intuition, those illnesses, those chronic illnesses like gastric issues, low energy, mood fluctuations, those are all signs that what's going on in your environment is not in alignment with your well-being. It is definitely creating a toxic environment, which you're not going to thrive in. It's like that we talked about this when we spoke before, the water experiment. So we are energy bodies, we're affected by vibration. And so we can create cellularly a vibration of illness or heaven or hell based on what we're viewing life through. So if you're in a toxic environment and relationship, and there's just lots of yelling and emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, that puts the body in a state of survive mode, and it downregulates your DNA. All your cells start to, I guess you could say in a sense, kind of putrefy. They don't thrive. They start to die. And that's where you see dis-ease, because dis-ease is living in the ego. It's being in a state of what we talked about with shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, anger, and pride, versus living in the heart, which is being in acceptance and being with your inner reason and inner wisdom, and being in love with self and seeing self in others and loving all of others. And that is the oneness that we speak of. That's the Namaste way, because we're all one and we're all having this experience. No one is escaping this experience. We're not, none of us are getting out of here alive. So are you gonna die while you're living, or are you gonna learn how to die before you die in order to rise out of those ashes? Because that's what you're gonna have to do when you've come through this type of narcissistic abuse and trauma. It's the only way out is through. But
Mhm.
that through means going through to the other side, not going through and going back and living there. It's you're driving your car and you watch your rearview mirror. So those beliefs come up in the rearview mirror. So picture it this way: you're driving, your belief of I'm not good enough comes up in your rearview mirror, and you glance up at that and be like, I'm good enough. That's just my ego trying to keep me safe. And you just keep driving. And then another one comes up, but they may not like you because you're being you. To know me is to love me. So you're automatically reshifting those birthright imprints. And then you're driving along, and then another one comes up, I'm not lovable. Who's ever said that to me? I'm very lovable. I have a huge heart. I love everybody. And so
Mhm.
you're driving, and you're not driving like this going, you're bullshit. It's like driving and messing with the kids in the back seat. No, you're going to crash your damn car. It's being empowered is being in control of what you focus on.
Mhm.
Like you can focus on the pile of poop over here, or you can focus on the flowers that are growing out of it, or the mushrooms, because usually mushrooms grow from, but yeah, we're not mushrooms, so we need to stop shooting all over ourselves. Anyway, so yeah,
Mhm.
detoxing from those emotions, that becomes the work that we're doing once we leave these relationships, because if you don't detox those emotions, you start recreating them in your friendships. And it's not necessarily a bad thing when you realize that this is a classroom for you to learn how to reach enlightenment and do the shadow work. The shadow work, well, how are you going to do shadow work if you don't even know what shadow work is? Well, shadow work is dealing with all the shit that you've gone through and all of those negative beliefs and behaviors and habits that are still keeping you in a state of dis-ease. Whether you're allowing someone to negatively speak to you, or you're the one doing it, or you're the one eating things that aren't good for your body, or drinking things that are toxic, or not drinking enough water. These are all things that we have control over and no one else. And so doing that work, that's self-love. And when self-love becomes a priority, self-care becomes a basic formality, because you're
Mhm.
going to show up and love yourself through your self-care, because you're like, oh, how I care for myself is how I show myself I love myself, and how I do one thing is how I do everything. So if I'm in alignment with myself, then I'm going to be in alignment with my truth and my purpose and my passion. And when you're there, and I've shown you this chart before, when you're in alignment with your present and your peace, you're living in an emotional state of bliss. Your view of life is perfect. To transcend even higher is just to stay in allowing. And you're experiencing synchronicity and extraordinary outcomes, which is where you meet like-minded folks, where I'm all about love, you're all about love. You're seeing synchronicities like repeating numbers and things like that. Or the fact that we both wore white shirts today.
Oh yeah.
That's vibing, that's synchronicity. That shows, that's another way for source to say, you're right where I want you right now. This is that extraordinary outcome. And you and I, this is our passion. We love speaking about this. So we're 100% present. I'm feeling pretty blissful right now. What about you?
Same here.
Yeah. So we're living in illuminated minds. So we're in matter over mind at this point, because we know what matters is what we're focusing on right now, not 10 minutes ago or 10 minutes from now, right now. And feels like heaven to me. I mean, if I looked at my bank account right now, I wouldn't think that. But if I look at where I'm at in my heart space right now, and I'm looking at all the beautiful things around me and even all the clutter, I see beauty in that collateral damage, and I see harmony in that chaos. So I don't know. I think that might be a stopping place for you to maybe interject something or ask another question, because I'm just
I
I'm
mean, there's
so
so many interesting insights, and I think that whoever is listening to this, it will be so helpful, like literally, especially on the part that on loving ourselves. And I really wanted to go even deeper on this, unconditional love, because especially when we go through narcissistic abuse. We are taught that uh, everywhere and everyone, like anything, it's all about conditions,
Yeah.
right? That especially the narcissist, for example, doesn't accept us, doesn't love us, but this is because they don't accept themselves either. So they are just projecting these, these feelings, these emotions. And yeah, we really have to remember this and take this into account every time we start to feel, I feel unworthy of love. I feel like I'm nothing, like I won't ever do anything in life. These are common thoughts.
Yeah.
But the question here would be, in your chart, in the emotions and the frequencies of shame and guilt, if you had any ideas of how would a person listening to this could transmute them, these emotions of shame and guilt, how could they do this?
So shame and guilt, first of all, to know that the first key to transcend this cycle of beliefs is acceptance. You have to accept what happened. It's not saying that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's accepting it. Okay, it happened. Shit happens, or shift happens. That's what I like. So with that acceptance, what you're going to start to experience then is the emotional state of forgiveness, which then gives you a view of life as harmonious. So instead of being down here where your shame and your emotions, just the associated emotional state is humiliation and your view of life is miserable. Well, if you now go, so you're looking through your ego. You're looking through ego right here. Now you put on your Wonder Love goggles, right? I talk about this in my book. Put on your Wonder Love goggles. All right, life is rosy now. All right, baby. All right, we accepting the shit. We forgave it. We harmonious. Now, what's my passion? What am I passionate about? Now that's where they're going to go adventuring into what was it that I loved doing when I was a little kid? What lit me up? What is it that you were doing when you were doing it? You lose track of time. You may even forget to feed and nourish yourself because you're so entranced in what you're doing. Like I think about my 4-year-old toddler granddaughter when she's playing. When she gets entranced in something, you could be talking to her. She ain't hearing you. She's completely in her zone. So what is it that gets you in your zone? That's where you're going to want to move to. But here's the thing. If you're believing that you're not worthy, how can you find a sense of worthiness? You're going to need to take action, which means you're going to need to overcome fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. And we flip it to face everything and rise. Because what if you do face it and rise? And that's what I did. Facing it was the best way to evolve out of it and transmute it. And find ways to use your energy positively. That is where self-care comes in. That is where service to others comes in. That is where being a philanthropist, a humanitarian, help your community, those things, because a generous heart and a gracious heart is receiving more things to be gracious and generous about. And it's also moving you up into a vibration of love. So now you've used your energy positively and you can start to appreciate. So as you see, you've transcended and you're up here encouraged because you got to be courageous to step into the healing of this. And here's the thing. You can stay down here and be shameful and miserable all you want, but you're going to end up near death like I was. I was almost dead. I was so sick, physically, mentally, spiritually, because I was living in a state of shame and humiliation. And I was 100% miserable. I didn't even want to face the day. I didn't want to wake up. I would wake up and immediately start crying and want to go back to sleep because it was so painful. And then I didn't even have the energy to face the day. So I would just lay in bed. And that's the body shutting down. I was in adrenal fatigue, really, really bad. And that's the other thing. You can stay in those relationships and love that guy all you want, honey. But honey, he don't love himself. And if he don't love himself, honey, he ain't gonna love you ever. No matter how awesome you already are. He doesn't see it and he's not supposed to. You are supposed to see it. And that's the thing of we have to stop giving our power away because that keeps us down here. I wanted so much for my ex-husband to do the work to heal so we could have a happy, harmonious marriage, but it wasn't in the stars because it was destined for me to become who I am right now, doing what I am right now. I wouldn't have been able to do that. And, he even on the other side of it said, I can't stay with you. I'm going to ruin you. You deserve so much better than what I'm even capable of giving you. And it was hard for me to hear that because that unconditional love, I loved him so unconditionally. Like I would let him walk all over me. He was betraying my trust. He was cheating on me with he had addictions and all kinds of things that were taking him away, not being present with me. And I finally said, he doesn't love me. He's never going to love me because he doesn't know how. And that was again how I realized, oh my God, it's not that my mom didn't love me. She just didn't know how because she didn't love herself. And so I didn't love myself either because I didn't know how. And I felt all kinds of despair and hopeless. And I would actually blame. It's their fault that I don't know how to do this. It's my mom and dad's fault. They didn't want me. It's my mom's fault because she did drugs and drank while she was pregnant with me and blah. That is not solving the problem. That's keeping me stuck in it. So I had to learn to keep the love lenses on and work through these levels and get into frequencies of being present in the right now. And so for me, that was being in nature because there is proven scientific facts of how nature heals the positive ion overindulgence from, toxic everything that we're exposed to. And it brings you back to balance and center. And then art, because that puts you into your heart. And then writing, because that's creation mode. So anything I could do to put myself in a state of creation mode and harmony with all the beautiful things around me, that's what I had to start doing. But the biggest thing I did was what I call the mind diet. And that's in my Namaste, Way and Thrive book. So I started feeding myself like food 3 times a day, this new empowered set of beliefs that have rewritten the disempowered ones of it's not okay to be me. It's not okay to learn and make mistakes. And in rewriting those beliefs and listening to those 3 times a day, I did that for 30 days. And within 30 days, I started catching myself. The things that I would be on repeat were different. Instead of the I'm not lovable, it turned into I am lovable. It is safe to be loved, because I also thought being loved meant I was going to be abused. So I was terrified of anyone trying to love me because, oh my God, you're going to abuse me too. That's what everybody else says, that they love me, but then they hurt me. And I have a right to exist. That was a big one, because one of the things that my mom had also said was, the only reason you're here is because I didn't want to go to hell. So I had that sense of I didn't have a right to exist based on that belief. And so I started, doing the mind diet several times a day. I adopted a 7 steps to the now as well, which is now shortened into I stop, take a breath, and ask myself, where can I be love in my right now? And what in my life right now is wow. And that is, again, is the appreciation and intention journal, because in order to get that muscle of unconditional love pumping and flowing, you've got to start working it. And you have to start with you and start with turning the way that you would allow all the other people to shoot you down, turn that inward, and realizing that in each failure, the version of you that's healed and happy and harmonious embraced every step of this along the way and knew that it's going to be uncomfortable, but it can't be any more uncomfortable than what I've already gone through. And that's the thing, is ego's going to come in when you're trying to do this work. It's going to convince you that you're not lovable, why bother trying? Why bother? No one cares. you know, and that's where you're going to have to step in and really do what we call repetition and be on be on a state of just as in glued into making yourself your best self as much as you were trying to make the other people be their best selves, if that makes any sense. And so you start learning how to empower your every now, and that starts to empower all the things happening outside of you, which then will help you get through all of this. But when the despair comes up and you're feeling hopeless, it's again reminding yourself, I am worthy. Get into your energy positively. And then when you're anxious, that's just your courage being known and coming to the surface. So take a breath. And anxiety can be very easily misconstrued with nervous or not excited. So sometimes when we're moving into something that's unknown, we'll get anxiety, but it's actually, we can reframe it and flip it to, I'm excited because I don't know what to expect. And I'm just so excited for all the possibilities. But if you've had trauma like I've had, any new experience is going to be met with resistance, because you'd be like, but what about this? And what about that can happen? And this can happen and that. And so you're going to be in survival mode, hyper vigilant. And so when you feel yourself doing that, again, breath is the best way to get to that part of the brain that is the fight, flight, freeze mode. And the breath tells the brain, okay, we're safe. We've got oxygen. All's good. Because here's the thing, when you're anxious, you're breathing shallow. You're not inhaling fully. So you're not fueling your brain. So your brain's just like, oh my God, I can't breathe. I can't think. So always start with breath, take a step back, and then, go through the routines like what I did with how can I be love? What is wow? What is right now? And, keep doing the breathing. I like to do dance a lot because my nervous system is jacked up, so that I'll feel it in my body. And if you look at how animals are in the wild, when they get scared, they tense up, their hackles come up. Well, that's us. We don't have hackles, but our body and every cell in it is raising its hackles. So in order to kind of smooth it back down, you shake it all out,
Yeah.
high vibe music, use your vocal cords, scream into a pillow. I've done a lot of screaming into pillows. I've done a lot of screaming in my car driving through the forest because there's no one there. No one's going to hear me. Although I don't recommend screaming and driving at the same time because that made me dizzy once. So I was like, okay, from now on, when I'm feeling this, I'm just going to pull over and just rage against the machine and then, blah, and then on my drive.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I don't know about you, but I wasn't allowed to feel my pain. I wasn't allowed to process my emotions ever until I was almost 50. And then, so I've been doing a lot of emotional purging over the last few years, especially since 2021.
I think this is something we share. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and shame too, purging the shame, because
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of shame because until I learned to accept myself and then conditionally love myself, I looked at all the things that I had done out of my trauma through eyes of shame. I wasn't always the best mom. I wasn't always the best wife or the best girlfriend or the best human in general. I wanted to be, but when you're coming from a place of living life and you're an adult body, but you're essentially still a 4-year-old, yeah, have fun. You're going to have a lot of mistakes. But watching my granddaughter, when she makes mistakes, she gets over it. She lets it go. She doesn't hyper focus on it anymore because she's not traumatized, and so it's learning to love ourselves unconditionally, going, well, shit. And I always say this to myself, honey, you need to just step back a second and appreciate the person that you are right now, because look at everything you've gone through and you still want to be kind to people. That speaks volumes. And so then I start to forgive myself and be like, okay, there is hope for me. There is meaning. And that's the thing. Until you find meaning in the madness, you're just going to be lost in the madness. But when you understand that the madness was to teach you unconditional love and forgiveness, first of self and then expand out to others, then you're like, well, dang, that's a pretty, like, that's a master class. Like,
Yeah.
that's advanced soul level stuff. And so that's the thing that I've come to know through my journey is I'm here to help young souls who are ready to expand their consciousness from fear to love and do the work to expand into freedom from fear using the power of love, and to get into alignment with the inner divine using the tools that I've created. And the power of 7 is divine mastery. And mastery is only achieved through you expose yourself to it, you implement it, and then you go into repetition. And that's what I take people through is I've had to do that myself. I've had to, some days, you know, when I wake up, I have to remind myself, okay, yeah, this isn't the same life that it used to be. It's like Groundhog Day. Today's a better day, you know, focus on the possibilities. And I would find every time I would start to get a little bit of leeway, something would come and knock me back on my ass. And I'd be like, ugh. I'd have to be like, no, I got this. So it's that resiliency. It's resiliency comes, I think, with unconditional love. I think you can't have one without the other. So if you're a resilient person, you've got unconditional love in there. It's just tapping into it and giving yourself permission to tap in, because trauma tells us, no, it's not safe. No, it's not safe. No, it's not safe. It's not safe. And so we play small, and that narrowed consciousness, that's what fear is. That's limiting, you know. An expanded consciousness means you have the alchemy, and harmony is the balance of fear and love. So if you have that awareness, then you realize that I can be afraid and do it anyway. That's harmony. You know, when I first started doing live podcasts, oh my God, I was terrified. Like, I'm a writer. So for me to speak, it's like I have all these things in my head, and it's like forming a to get the point, not exactly my strong point. And I know I ramble, but I tend to often ramble and weave in and out, and I weave a whole bunch of stories into one. And I think at the end, it kind of makes sense. Well, at least it does for me. So appreciating that in all of my everything, there's purpose, and loving every bit about it. One of the women that I'm going to be doing another podcast for, one of the things she teaches her clients is when you say something negative about yourself, like for me, I ramble on a lot, but I love that about me. Or I tend to interrupt people and blurt out stuff, but I love that about me. I have cellulite and a little bit of jiggle, but I love that about me, because it means that my body is doing what it's supposed to. The cellulite it's storing toxins away from my organs, protecting me. And the jiggle means I'm not living in a third world starving and starving, you know, I'm well fed. So, you know, it's that narrative of, if everything is happening, then it's happening for me, to see me better, to know me better, to love me deeply, and transmute all of the fear and all the trauma, and to know that others are doing the same, and to love them unconditionally where they're at. Like, I have love and respect for the people that have harmed me, because the lessons that I've learned from them, I don't think I would be who I am if I hadn't gone through that. And my soul has a purpose and a mission to be here to help people move through that. It makes sense that I need to know what they've gone through, you know? So I gave meaning to it, rather than it just being, oh, I was born to a mom that didn't want me, and so she just didn't take care of me. She just neglected me and allowed people to abuse me and take liberties of whatever they wanted with me. And she's like, oh, whatever, I don't care, you know? Or I could be like, my mother lacked emotional intelligence, didn't know how to love herself, didn't understand unconditional love and forgiveness. And so in that, her low life skill literacy is the very reason I had the experiences I had. So the meaning I can make from that is the passion that I hold for what I do is because I don't want another woman to be born into a family where she feels unloved and unworthy and not good enough, just because her mother was dealing with her own shit and passing it down. So I think it's a valuable thing that I've gone through and have transformed it into this Be Love movement to help shift humanity from division and disease to unity and wellness. And it's amazing when I did all the, like, went all the rabbit holes and put all together. I was like, wow, why are we not being taught this in school? Like, oh, because all the other, like, the things that we've learned in school that just pale in comparison to the gravity and depth of the work of doing the spiritual awakening and alignment and ascension process and everything that that is, and becoming your fully aligned and what they call the fully Christed self, meaning you're fully in alignment with all the divinity that's within. And it's not waiting for someone outside of you to come rescue you or to come down and save you. Like, no, right now, being you in this right now, that's your gift. That's your blessing. And all the different laws of hermetic principles, laws of vibration, quantum laws, all of this stuff that we're not being taught that really factor into the human experience. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff when I was having those experiences, but now that I know them, the way I show up in my world is completely different. I don't take things personal. I love people unconditionally, even at their worst, because it's like, that's the force of creation, is love. And I'm not here to tear another person down or to make someone feel bad for the experience that they're having, because it's their experience. And I just want to celebrate it. It's like, I love your high performance car, your body. Like, I love how you're rocking it, however you want to decorate it or roll in it. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. Like, thank you. Instead of being like, oh, how dare they? Oh, how dare they have purple hair? How dare they? How dare they like think that they can do this? Oh my gosh. Like, the world can be a comedy show or it can be a circus. I choose to make it a comedy show, not a circus. Because I've been with the circus and the monkeys, and they're just flinging poo all over the place. They ain't got a lick of sense in their heads. But comedy takes wit, comedy takes grit, and comedy takes courage. So, one of the biggest things of transmuting that is, you've got to find the comedy in it, or it will literally drive you mad. And that's, I think, the spiritual psychosis is that we see is people are taking in all of this information and the brain is just like, but I thought it was this way. And you start to lose yourself. Again, you can lose yourself in the spiritual awakening process very easily. I know, because I did. I was like, I went for a hot minute where for like 6 months straight, I went through a space of, I was on Rumble and Telegram and YouTube and all these spaces that were telling about all these apocalyptic world ending and all the bad stuff going on in the world, around the world. And it literally had me not wanting to leave my house again, not wanting to eat anything, because I'm like, it's all poisoned, and not wanting to go outside because, oh my God, the sky is poison. I literally had created another hell. I got out of one and created another. And so I started going, but maybe the news isn't right. Maybe it's just, north, east, west, south, words spread by mouth to create fright. Oh, hot quiz, so what are you going to give your focus to? So I learned that, kill the TV. Don't worry about the news. Worry about how you're being in each right now. Don't worry about how your neighbor is being, or your partner even. That's their responsibility. You're, as codependents, it's hard for us to see that it's not our role to fix everything. But our trauma says, no, I need to fix that and make this safe and make them happy. Because I used to actually say, I can only be happy if they're happy, because when they're happy, I know I'm safe. Like, that's trauma. That's trauma right there. So, so, just really learning that the emotional states that you want to focus on are being in an affirmation of positivity, trusting that everything is working out for you, and living in an optimistic state and being hopeful while being in your purpose and stepping out with passion. And then living in a state of forgiveness is how you live in harmony. And that is how you stay in the experience of being happy and productive, because you're not going to want to create when you're not happy, because your body's going to be like, I have nothing to give. What am I supposed to create? I feel like shit. I don't want to do anything, and then move into creation where you're like, I'm happy. Everything is here for me to be an artist with, and an alchemist. So knowing that we are all artists and alchemists in everything we do, those are the roles to really lean into. Like, where can I create more beauty in my life and all the things I do, not just with a paintbrush or a pen, but with the words in my ears, in between my ears, the words that come out of my mouth to others, the way that I put foods and drinks into my body, or what I'm visually watching with my eyeballs, because those will affect your energy too. So another thing, if you're living in this state of shame, don't watch sad movies. Don't watch frightful things. Your nervous system needs to heal. You need to be watching puppies and kitties and duckies on TV and laughing at little toddlers doing silly things.
Yeah.
That's what you need to fuel your soul with more than anything. So that's why I started doing my morning routine differently. I bookend my days with my self-care. I start with making laughter and dance and breath work and nourishing and hydrating myself priority. Same at the end of the day. I know that the nervous system is a very fragile thing after trauma. So you've got to eat consciously through the day, hydrate consciously, breathe consciously, meditate, be in stillness, because trauma makes you be busy, busy, busy. So you gotta slow down, and that's going to feel really uncomfortable. But that's, again, a good coach will keep you accountable, will be with you every step of the way. And the program I've created isn't I'm just going to sell you a course and I'm just going to disappear. No, I have a course and we show up every day and we do the work, and we go through that. And then after that, you're pretty well set to where you don't need me. A good coach is going to work their way out of your life, because you're going to get into alignment and your training wheels are going to be off. So a coach is like training wheels.
Yeah.
You're learning how to ride a new bike. You're learning how to navigate your new body that has never been yours, because everybody else has been just feeding off of you. Well, now you need to go feed you and heal. And that doing the work requires, being consciously aware of what the hell is going on. And if you don't have awareness of what's going on, you can't heal the trauma, and you can't align to what you need to be aligned to, which is how you thrive after you've achieved the impossible of healing all of that. And it is possible. You and I are sitting here as living proof that healing is possible when you lean in and love yourself and release the negative influences that are making you sick, and so.
Yeah. So beautiful, really. Like so many insights to just integrate, to learn. I had a question about, we've been talking about, healing individually on an individual level. So now to finish this podcast, I was thinking about going on a macro level, like we start with the micro and then we go with the macro, the entire community, the collective consciousness. So would you recommend, on healing? Because many times in the spiritual community, they say that if you heal yourself, you already heal your ancestors. But sometimes I think that you need maybe other specific approaches or methods. So to heal, the generational trauma, the baggage that you carry just by being born, would you recommend anything else or just healing yourself?
Well, I'm still learning all of that, but I do know, I've heard that too. As you heal yourself, you heal 7 to 8 generations backwards and forwards. And I've had an Akashic Records read, and she even had said the same thing, that this has been going on in my family for 8 generations, this mother-daughter chaos bullshit. And that that was my mission, that I was here to create the break in the cycle.
Mhm.
And in that, also in that reading, she said I had 120 soul fragments that she retrieved to bring back. So yeah, for the 6 months after that, I was really going through a recalibration. And she said that is normal, that you would go through a depression and anxiety shift as all of the pieces and parts of you come back. She wasn't lying. I did really go through it. But in the integration and the recalibration, as now I've got Akashic Records read and I know who I am and what I'm here to do, now it made more sense why I went through what I went through. So yeah, I do really say that, get curious. Your soul knows what it needs. And I really do think that the journey of our soul is kind of pre-laid out before we come incarnate into this.
Mhm.
We devolve from spirit into human form to then evolve back out, because that's what we're doing. I don't remember, I saw the map, but you devolve to evolve. You're going to have things along the way that may be different on your path that was on mine. So that's why meditation is great, and being curious about why people are coming into your life, because maybe they have medicine for you. And that's what this was. I found a lot of my help through free sessions, and they're available, because a lot of us that are coming out of trauma, we don't have financial security or freedom. So we're really reliant on service from others. And there's a lot of healers out there that are very gracious at offering help with, the Akashic Records. There was a gentleman that does a snap, and he helps wipe out, it's a forgiveness thing. I don't remember exactly, because it's been a few years since I did that one. And then I've done the big one, and this one is my favorite, the quantum hypnotherapy healing technique, QHHT.
Yeah.
A must, because all those subconscious things. So think of the brain has all these things that are put in there unconsciously that our parents said before we're even consciously aware of it. Like, I'm not good enough. And my mom used to always say, you're never going to amount to anything. So I used to think I'm never going to amount to anything. And I didn't understand where that came from until I started doing the work. So doing the quantum hypnotherapy is you're awake, but you're awake with your higher self. You're not under hypnosis. You're hearing everything, but you're into a part of the I don't even know how to explain it, but with my eyes closed, there was like a hole. So I was looking up here. So I was looking up, my eyes were looking up. So it was like I was looking through my third eye, and it was like a hole, and it was dark around the edge of the hole, but then through the hole was bright blue sky. And then I would see pictures and, words would pop in. So what was coming up was all of the negative stuff that had been put in, and it was coming through for me to see it. And then I was seeing like other messages of like a jaguar, an owl, and all these other like sacred geometry things were being shown. And in doing that healing modality, that was the last healing modality that I worked on. And it had the most profound effect, because I was still dealing with this really recurrent anxiety and depression. And it would be like a 48-hour cycle. I would be good for about 12 to 24 hours. And I would start to feel my mood shift back down. And then I would be right back in the shit again. And it would just feel like someone had ripped the rug out from under me. Well, we found through the quantum hypnotherapy that has been the pattern of my whole life. So my nervous system instinctually just wants to shut down after anything good comes. So when I have lots of good come my way, I now know to take that next day to nurture myself, because my nervous system is fighting me. It's literally wanting to stay in that miserable state. And I'm like, no, I'm happy. My granddaughter just got to spend the night with me. This is awesome. I'm so loved. I'm so included. But then my body's like, but bad shit happens when good stuff comes. You better brace for it. So it's that bracing for impact. So I just want to normalize for people that when we're doing this work, like I've been in trauma. I'm 51 now. My whole life has been trauma until I was like 47. So since 2018 on has just been, this new room for me to play in and get to know myself. And if I hadn't have done that QHT, I was still struggling with the depression to the point of not wanting to kill myself, but having this suicidality going on of like, I should give up. My mom said I was never going to amount to nothing. And that's when I started saying, up, it's that belief. It's this belief that I've got to turn off, and not necessarily turn off, but shift and accept it of, well, maybe my mom was right. Maybe I wouldn't have ever amounted to anything if I had chosen to not start doing the work. And the fact that I chose to started to choose to do the work is why I was able to start waking up every day and having more energy, freedom from fear by using love. I was excited to face my day again and loving life, even in the shit, like just not putting a whole bunch of narrative on when I feel bad that I'm bad, and in doing that helped me to kind of put those fragmented pieces back together. And also people showing up for me and showing me how to show up for myself, which I learned by doing that work and seeing that another person was showing up and helping me work through that trauma and loving me unconditionally and allowing me to be vulnerable and still be safe was crucial for me to heal. So it is very vital that you align yourself with coaches and mentors and leaders who are also doing the work, who are being vulnerable, who are being transparent, that aren't promising this massive transformation. Because I don't have a crystal ball. I'm very intuitive, but each person's experience relies on what's going on in their mind. I have no control over that. I can inspire or motivate or educate, but I cannot do the transmutation work for another person. That lies on us. No more than you can do my work for me, So.
Yeah, that's so true, especially, in the coaching industry. Many times, they promise like big results. And I really like the idea that you are getting what you put into, like the effort you put into.
Yeah, well, exactly. And what you pour into yourself, they say you will know a fruit or a tree by the fruit it bears. Well, it doesn't take much awareness of looking at the fruit bared from being codependent or narcissistic versus an ascended, aligned, harmonious human being, and I have this poem here I want to read real quick. It's about harmony or chaos, and it really fits with what we're talking about here. So
yeah, I think we can leave it, for the end, like us to finish.
Yeah. So, it's doom or gloom when you wake up every day. Which lens are you going to keep feeding? The doom and gloom or bloom? I like to see the bloom. And, sometimes if you think of yourself like a flower or a plant, what happens when plants don't get enough water or sunshine? They wilt and wither. We're the same way. We need to be nurtured and nourished with the same importance, or we wither and we die. And when we're living in a state of being miserable and shame, death is 0 right below that. So you're at a level of frequency of 20. So your energetic frequency is near death. And I don't want people suffering. I watched my mother literally die in front of my eyes, suffering in miserable shame and humiliation every day. Like, she sat at the table and she'd sit there, like, I don't have a table, but she'd sit there like this, just despondent, detached, dissociated, not present. Like, she didn't cook or clean or do any of that. I was the one doing it from age 8 on. And so I had to reframe and relearn and reset my groove to now as well, and every now, and to remember that I'm capable of taking care of people really well. I've done it my whole life, but I never took care of me. So I started turning that inward. I don't know about you, but I would spend all this effort to make people these big elaborate meals, but then I wouldn't do it for myself. And my inner child was like, hey, why won't you do that for me? Don't you love me? And it was in that moment when I started doing those little things just for me, you know, buying myself flowers or taking myself on a lunch date, listening to my inner child when I saw this really pretty blanket. It was real soft and fuzzy. Oh, I want that. Oh, you don't need that, but I want it. Okay. Well, if you want it, I guess because it makes you so happy, let's get this for you. And so that self-rewarding and self-validation was very transformational too, because I had grown up not thinking it was okay to want things or to receive things, and that asking for things meant that there was something wrong with me, you know. And now I know that that is, you know, that's the work of healing the ego. That's the work of healing what my mom had been imprinted from her mom and my stepdad and his parents. And, you know, doing that work really is transformational. Now, as far as like other work for epigenetics, there's the 5-pillar foundations that I've put in the Namaste Way book, incorporates some of what the teachings of Joe Dispenza, where you're changing your cellular level at the cells and then showing up from there and doing that work. And then breath work, somatic breath work release, definitely recommend that, but with a practitioner that knows what they're doing, because again, when you're messing with trauma, you got to be careful, because I was very fragile. I'm a 2-time suicide survivor, and both times I tried to do that, I was hormonal, and it was a impulsive thing. It wasn't something that was planned out. It was just, I just swallowed a bunch of pills and almost died. So it's that awareness of, if you don't do the work and you open up Pandora's box and you don't have the right support team in place, it's disaster. And, you know, I'm lucky I made it through. It's a pure miracle that I'm here, but it's also a testament to the work that I've been putting in and the work that I continue to put on a daily basis of loving myself unconditionally and looking at life through a lens of love. And when it pops up as a lens of fear, I ask myself, fear, what is it that you wish me to hear? Fear, what is it that is coming near that I hold so dear that I feel so threatened that I might lose? What is it, fear? You know, you just start having these conversations with the fear, and then you start hearing your inner child, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot you along the way. Oh no.
Yeah.
Like, you're still in there. And you're just trying to be this grown-up person, and like, you haven't a clue what the hell to do, but you're doing your best. Like, I'm so proud of you, you know, like, yeah. Profound work this is, but
A lot.
ineffable is what the experience is on the other side when you do that healing. Because when I first started going to nature, when I did the healing, I was mesmerized by it, but I was always still like antsy. I couldn't just settle in. Now I can go out into nature and I just like, and I'm just like looking, like, it's so beautiful. I'm looking out right now and it's a blue sky. There's some stormy clouds over the foothills back here. The trees are all green and blossomed now, and the wind is blowing, and it's life. Life is happening. And, you know, simultaneously, if I were to look at life through the lens of fear and all the things that are not quite where I want them to be in my life, I'd be like, ugh. But I'm like, no, everything is just always works out for me. Everything is happening for me. And rejection is divine protection and redirection for what is better for my resurrection, not an insurrection. So when
Exactly.
things don't work
That's
out,
what I would like to remember.
Yeah, I think I have it written down I'm a poet, so I have a lot of rhymes. And with the head injuries, that's how I learned to remember them, is I make rhymes and little mnemonic devices. And what's coming out in book number 3 is really fun and has really helped me get from feeling broken to feeling badass. And badass is the acronym. So it's also the course, and it teaches you how to be present in right now and how to have the awareness, how to know what it is to ask for, what to do, what you need to be affirming, what you need to be surrendering, and what it is you're succeeding at. So I'm really excited about that one, and definitely going to be bringing in some beta testers on that course to make some pancakes and see what results we get, instead of just throwing spaghetti at the wall, because I got results from it, but I want to see how other people are when they go through this 6-week course.
Yeah.
And how to use the power of 7 and it's called the 7 levers to namaste. And so I have each day, there's a different task that we're going to learn, and then things we're going to alchemize, and just how we're going to educate, empower, and transcend this cycle of pain by learning how to be love, be now, and look at life through eyes of wow. And it'll incorporate, all the stuff in the Namaste Away book. It incorporates the appreciation and intention journal and all of the other things that I've created. Like, I have basically created almost at this point a 52-week program. So for a whole year, and it will take, what do they say? I'm like totally like reality bomb or something like, but anyway, truth bomb. It takes a while to heal this trauma. Like, you're not going to get it done in just 6 weeks. You're not going to get it done in 6 months. You're not going to get it done in even probably 9 months. I've been doing this since 2018, and I still feel like there's more for me to evolve into, but that's a good thing to have more to evolve into. But I'm definitely not in survival mode anymore, and my nervous system is healing, because now I can go to bed, I power down at 9 o'clock, bath, book, and then bed by 9:30 and lights out at 10, because I'm following my body's circadian rhythm. And then I'm waking up in the morning, between 5:30 and 6, sometimes 6:30, without an alarm. So there's none of that, oh my God, freak me out. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, I feel good. I feel refreshed, even though I do toss and turn a lot because of the brain injury, it affects my sleep, but I'm now getting rest, and I'm not experiencing weight gain anymore, or even weight loss, because I was having a hard time gaining weight for a minute. And a lot of the autoimmune issues have, pretty much went into remission, as long as I don't things I'm not supposed to, like gluten. I don't eat dairy, but sometimes I get gluten in my diet unknowingly, and then I'm like, why do my joints hurt? Or if I, have the cupcake like I had for my birthday, that made my joints kind of achy. So I'm sensitive to sugar, but that's, again, leaky gut, which happened from being in a toxic relationship. You get gastritis because your body is screaming at you that you cannot assimilate what's in your world, but unless you know that your body is telling you that, you won't know. So, yeah, getting through all of that takes time, takes patience, lots and lots of unconditional love and acceptance. But it really requires the awareness of what the hell is even going on? What the hell did I just go through?
Yeah.
What was that? Like, I didn't even know that stuff was a thing until 2018 when I was doing the work. I had just been in these relationships, and I literally thought all men were assholes, quite frankly. And I was considering going to bat for the other team, because I was like, well, maybe I'm just with the wrong people. And it's not that, because that wasn't the problem at all. It was me not being in alignment with the divine creature of me. I'm a divine being, and I was trying to be in everybody else's divine being to be happy. That's not how this human experience works. You can't pedal someone else's car and think that your car is going to run. Like you just left your car behind you. You're running somebody else's car. So yeah, when we're codependent and trying to fix our partner so we can be happy, you'd better serve your time, energy, and attention and get a better return on your investment if you would just focus all your energy on your frequency and your vibration being in love versus fear. So yeah. Thank you for attending my TED Talk today, everybody.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the poem, it's just a quick one right here.
Mhm.
Just a second. But it's harmony or chaos. So when words and memories rip open old wounds, causing regret, shame, and pain, instead of run or fight it, let it flow through unconditional love's strain. Before you jump back on the conflict and chaos train and allow others to wash your joy and peace down the drain, remember, message or lesson or one and the same, being human is a classroom, not a win or lose game. You create your anguish if you bite into your shame. And if you let go and hold no judgment, it's fear's beast you will tame. And at the end of it all, one truth will remain: to choose forgiveness with curiosity over division and disdain is the only way to rise above, to transcend the cycle of pain. When life rips open old wounds again. Candice J. Fraser. And this is, I don't know what that is, but that's like color healing, color therapy, geometry. I don't know. It's red, which is, the root chakra. Yellow is following your intuition. Pink is unconditional love. Blue is speak your truth. And green is your emerald heart chakra of love. So yeah, I drew that, and that's the poem that came out of that.
So beautiful. I just had chills listening to this.
And see, that's, I have a bunch of these I've written poems for, and my Reset Your Groove podcast and the Sweet Nine podcast. There are a lot of poetry like this where I would just start writing and rhyming, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And they'd be like, wow, that's cool. So yeah, I get into this flow and I can do it that way. And it comes through really cool. And I've shared a lot of those on the podcast. I have a lot of them in my book. I have books upon books. Like that's a book full. This is a book full. I have notebooks full. I don't know why that's coming up. I have notebooks full of poems and rhymes, and I love it. It's awesome. And it's really about realizing, again, choose forgiveness with curiosity over disdain and over division and disdain. And that's the only way to rise above and transcend the cycle of pain. And that's why the be love, be now, live wow. It's real simple. We just make it so damn complicated. Thank you, ego. Thank you, ego, for making life complicated, to give me a classroom to expand my consciousness from fear to love. See, this is how you in motion transmute that fear and that ego story. That's how that was me doing that in live. Yeah. So.
And creativity is a great way to, transmute pain and just express yourself, release the pain. It's so beautiful.
Well, because it's unconditional love. If I'm not taking anything personal and I'm unconditional love and appreciation, my heart chakra just swells and I feel so much love and joy and oneness, because I'm like, I get to see you being you, which is a version of me being me. Like, awesome. I'd celebrate that, and when you see on the world stage, the people that are living in fear and focusing on loving power, not the power of love, you see very clearly where the problem lies. And I was like, humanity, community, unity's right there in the word. That's what's lacking. We're not in unity with ourselves. Well, at least I wasn't. I was trying to be aligned with everybody else's happiness and making them happy to be happy. Like, that's not how we do it. But that's how we've been conditioned. Because when we live in fear, we're easily manipulated. And that was what my experience was. When I was living in fear, I was manipulated to do things like, you know, moving into things that weren't in alignment with my morals and my code of ethics, just in order to fit in.
Yeah, it happened to me as well, like with the narcissistic parents. When you're living in fear, it's just what you said.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is the black sheep of the family is always the ones. I was the black sheep of the family. I never fit in anywhere. Here's the thing though. We have a beautiful opportunity, all of us black sheeps that don't fit in, to own our truth, speak our voice, open up that throat chakra, scream it if you got to. Own your truth, own your crazy, own your power, and have the courage to stand out. We're leaders, not followers. That's why I was never able to like follow half of the things I tried to follow, because it was like, this isn't aligned with me. I feel stronger about this truth. And that was the focal point at age 5. I had a dream. I was the black sheep in this big ocean of water surrounded by all these white sheep. And the dream was like, you have a mission. And you know, another part of my story is I was told that was part of my mission from the Akashic records, is I'm here to help humanity ascend. And I'm like, oh, so I'm here to teach y'all how to be love. Let's chop. Be love to you first, because that's where it starts. If you're not loving you, then all the rest of the things in your world are going to keep showing up as pop quizzes to show you, hey, you're still not loving yourself over here. When's it going to be miserable enough that you're going to surrender? Because, and I'll leave you all with this transformational paradigm. Until the pain of remaining the same outweighs the pain of change, nothing changes. Everything stays the same. So until that pain is so much that you cannot bear it anymore, and until you finally get to your knees and you surrender, and that's what I did. I was on my knees crying out, saying, you better show me what I'm here to do, because I'm done. I don't want to live anymore. This is not happy. This is not living. I'm done. I don't want to do this. You better tell me what I'm here for. I'm out. That's surrender. That getting curious and stop wondering about what everybody else was supposed to be doing and worrying about what am I supposed to be doing. That's the freedom. So
thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'm
you're
sure that
welcome.
made you find you valuable. Yeah. Okay,
I know someone literally go take notes and then, okay,
yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. Like a notebook. You have to get a notebook.
Well, I mean, they'll get they will get a shift out of that.
Mm,
But doing the rest of the work, they really are going to need to hire a coach, whether it's you, me, or someone else that's in alignment with them. You know, it's going to require that. I didn't get to where I'm at by myself. I did a lot of work by myself. I had a coach early on that kind of, you know, set me up. And I actually took myself to coaching school, which is how I got where I'm at. You know, I coached myself through this, but also in that I was also coaching others to get my coaching certification, and in doing the writing. And I've been showing up on social media. Like if you go over and follow my TikTok alone, just in the last 2 years, just a lot of this has come out in my content and my podcasts, and then, you know, Facebook, Instagram. You know, there's over 2,000 posts on Instagram alone from me, because it's been my whole journey on Instagram has been there. So there's a lot that they can get a shift from, which should help them say, nah, it's time for me to say bye. I'm gonna stay away. I'm gonna stay away. I'm staying away. I'm just gonna stay away. Like, and that's hard too, because I've been now total of 15 months no contact with the ex, because we were still speaking afterwards because of taxes and everything. But after the divorce was final, there was no need to speak anymore. So I haven't spoken to him. He hasn't spoken to me. And it was really uncomfortable at first. And I wanted to call him when my dad passed away at the end of this last year. But I was like, no, like he doesn't care. He doesn't care. Why am I going to do that to myself? Why am I going to get rejection wounds opened up when I don't need to? So I was like, nah, I'm just going to stay away. I don't need to tell him, you know? And so it's possible, it's doable. And I didn't think I was ever going to be there. I didn't think I was ever going to be to a place where I could live without that man, because I thought he was the end all be all. Like, And if he didn't love me, then I couldn't be loved. And that's such a lie, you know. Even if another human being never loves me again, it's okay. Because I love me.
Yeah.
And I love myself so fiercely and so firmly. I'm unwavering in it. There's no way I would do something that's going to harm myself now. Like I even stopped drinking coffee and caffeine because I found out it's not good for our brain or our gut. It ruins and this is another gem, the BDNF in our gut, the brain derived neurotropic factor, basically the happy gene or happy hormones in our belly get depleted when we're drinking coffee. And if fun fact, the Starbucks siren, the mermaid sirens are always about casting spells. Go look down the rabbit hole of the Starbucks logo and what that was actually supposed to mean. You're like, oh, so glad I don't have that habit anymore. But yeah, so it's, you know, no more narcissistic, no more negative influences. I'm 15 months sober from alcohol as well, because I found out that is bad for our brain and our gut. It's a neurotoxin. It destroys the gut microbiome, which if your gut is destroyed, guess what? You're now the happy owner of anxiety and depression and mood swings. Yay! So how do we fix that? You got to stay away from all the negative influences, not just the narcissistic people. It's also narcissistic food, drinks, and beliefs too that can make you sick. So
Yeah.
detox it, love yourself, let go, forgive, heal, release. And like you say, you heal and you expand.
Okay. So thank you so much once again. Like really, there's so much expansion with this session. Like I think we're already like almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I need a stage and a retreat, because I could talk.
Yeah. And a TED talk, like you need to share everything because there's really a lot.
Yeah.
And
so that's the next step too, is creating a international tour for the books and retreats and workshops. So now I'm just like manifesting the team to come help me do all that, because I'm not trying to be a one-man band on that, because that will burn me out and my nervous system's gonna be like, no,
yeah.
I'm not even gonna rise to that occasion. No, thank you.
Okay, so to finish it, just a reminder, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you have all her links, all her offers, website, social media, you have it down below, so you can check it out. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, watching, and see you in the next episode.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for listening or watching to this podcast. Don't forget to save, download it, and follow the podcast for more updates, more healing, development, and expansion, and definitely more podcast episodes on healing and thriving from narcissistic abuse. See you in the next episode. Bye. Also, as you were watching and listening to this, I just want to know, what was your favorite part? Tell me in the comments or leave a message.